Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Alejandro Álvarez. I'm leading the Directorate General Services here at Banco de España, which is a Directorate General that comprises several supporting functions, being human resources one of them. I can tell you one that takes significant amount of my time. And I was asked to close this event. This debate whether it is easier to open an event or to close it. When you open it, you come with your intervention prepared, everybody's with high energy, you set the tone, and it's relatively straightforward. Closing is a bit more complex because you don't know whether you need to summarize a bit what has been said or you do some concluding remarks. I think it's easier because people are in a different mood. You are already probably planning your weekend. It's a Friday, so that makes things easier, and there is a lunch outside. But bear with me for a few minutes because I think it's also a powerful opportunity to send a strong message to conclude this conference, but also it's a bit of a challenge because, as I said, it's impossible to be original, especially after the level of the panelists and the speakers in the conference. So I was taking a lot of notes during the session of today, and I have a lot of messages, but let me see if I can do something structured to close this event. Basically, I got like 3 ideas. 2 of them probably do not require a lot of elaboration, especially for this audience. The first one is that the benefits of diversity and inclusion in organizations, I think this has been extensively researched, and there is conclusive evidence supporting that indeed it provides a positive contribution to practically all organizational areas. Improve decision-making, increase the pool of talents, provides you with a better understanding of the needs of all groups, stimulate innovation, better approach to problem solving, and enhance your reputation, and also an overall improvement in the performance of the institution. I think this is clear, and we all share that objective. The second point that also probably doesn't need any elaboration here is that this is a big challenge. It's a big challenge on which I think a lot has been done, and we have some measures that allow us to monitor progress in this field. So one of the issues that in the past was also relevant was increased awareness. It's something that definitely is not needed with this audience. Awareness, it's already at a sufficiently high level. What we may need a bit more is commitment, especially from those in positions of responsibility. To some extent, it reminds me something that happens, I don't know if Juan was here before, our head of IT, that happens like to cybersecurity. Initially, cybersecurity was a topic of relevance for IT experts. It was an issue for the IT guys. Now, cybersecurity is a whole issue in the board agenda. The same happens with diversity and inclusion. People tend to think that this is an HR topic, and it has been mentioned in one of the panels. It's not. It's so transversal. It affects all business areas. It's a topic for the highest level of the organizations. And the third idea that I had in mind, and probably requires a bit more elaboration, is that to some extent may seem obvious from the structure of the conference. We have had these 2 days. The first one was focused on research and analysis, and the second one with a more practical approach with practitioners, HR experts, diversity officers, etc. So this is the aspect that perhaps also taking into account our experience at Bank of Spain, I would like to elaborate a bit more. I think it has been mentioned on a couple of occasions that at Bank of Spain, we have for a number of years now, full parity in the composition of our workforce. And that full parity in the composition of the workforce, of course, is a strong starting point when you start looking at this issue of diversity. Let's concentrate diversity perhaps now a bit on gender diversity. But this figure, this full parity in the workforce composition, for me, it's a kind of double-edged sword, because what is the risk in that? You could easily fall in some kind of complacency if you have a superficial look at the numbers. And they may suggest that either you don't have a problem, or if you do, it will not be that big. I think our governor in his introduction yesterday somehow pointed into this direction. So gathering information is a complex process. You can have some basic data and extract some ratios, and then if you only do this first step, there is perhaps even a strong temptation to jump from this easy data into the design of certain actions. to correct what the data may suggest could be potentially a mistake. Indeed, data may indicate the existence, in particular, of certain gaps in some groups, in some business areas, in some managerial levels, etc. But the issue is a lot more complex. You need a lot more information. I think it was the topic covered yesterday. Data which is not so easy to get. You really need to compile and filter a lot of information. And to try to make an analogy, this is what, like, when you go to the doctor and you describe the symptoms are this easy data. Some doctors may jump immediately to prescribe you something, but that prescription may take some risks, especially if the issue has not been properly identified. And this is the issue on which here at Banco of Spain we have dedicated a lot of time and efforts in analyze the data, because that is the only way in which, once that you have done a proper diagnosis of the situation, then you can prescribe the medicines that could be more effective. Because I think, especially for those involved in your policies, in your institutions, we are all aware that any action on this complex field may have also undesired effects. Here it was mentioned the backslash or the backfiring. So this is not neutral. No? It was mentioned that diversity sometimes is identified with benefiting or being more favored to certain groups, and that creates tension in organizations. So all of this may sound obvious, but the point I was trying to make is that from the three phases that you may face in this problem, then collecting the data, analyzing, and then designing actions, I would dedicate a lot of time to the first two. Gather the relevant data, understand what's going on in your organization, try to understand the real barriers that are preventing people from diverse groups to get the development or the career or the inclusion that they need before designing actions that you may have read that they function in different organizations that perhaps were addressing different problems. So, as I said, this is something on which we have dedicated a lot of time. We have a full range of measures, trainings, development, soft skills for managers, specific training for women in leadership, also improving working conditions. There are some measures that are intrinsically good. So whatever you do around these things will improve the situation and the work-life balance. Flexible work-time schedules, part-time arrangements, teleworking, training opportunities. In our HR department, we even have been very creative with the figure of the so-called reverse mentoring. I don't know if it was mentioned here. To improve digital skills in senior executives by junior staff, very technological mentees, very well accepted by our senior managers. So the objective is to remove all those barriers, but make sure that you are addressing the point that you are having in your specific organization. So it's time to close. It's time to gather all the information and try to use all this in our respective areas of influence to try to promote this diversity, inclusion, and equality in finance, economics, and in our organizations. I hope you find the conference informative and inspiring, in particular this approach, a bit innovative in trying to merge the work from the research area on this topic and also some practical aspects. Thank you very much for all of you who attended physically, also the speakers, because without them this event would not be of that high level. I have here a note. I have to tell you that today Madrid is a very lively city, but it's so lively that we have a number of public demonstrations this afternoon. So now we have the lunch, but I was told to inform you that, like in evacuation exercises, make sure you leave the building before 5, in case there are problems to reach, I don't know, airports, train stations, or whatever. I would also like to thank the organizing team, our division of training and development, in particular Ana Ramos, who was behind the scenes, making sure that everything was working properly. And thank you all.